help and opportunity is in greater proximity than our brain will make us think it is. Our brain is trained to naturally think like all this shit is so far out and like it's out there somewhere. Something life-changing was 90 seconds away from me this whole time.
Welcome, everybody, to the Warrior Podcast. We have a special guest today. His name is Andrew Weis. He's a 5-star realtor, very integrated in all facets of real estate. He is a house flipper. He knows a ton about construction, investment portfolios, rental properties. He's on a new mission now. It's a coaching mission, which we'll get to. But before we even get there, we're going to tell his story of being in his total personal darkness and almost not pulling through. And it's a story of victory, and it's a story of inspiration. And I can't wait to share it with you. And with that said, my friend Andrew Weis, welcome to the Warrior Podcast.
Hey, thanks, Frank. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome. So what I like to do at the beginning is just start out with your beginnings to tell people, like, you know, how was your life from earliest memories forward?
So I grew up in Midlothian until I was about 6. My father owned a small business that, just like most small businesses, was struggling at first. And then over time, he got some success, and we moved to Flossmoor when I was in elementary school. So it's me and I have an older brother. He's a little less than 2 years older than me. So like growing up, we were always so close, like with sports, just hanging out, mutual friends, really just had that camaraderie because you're so close in age, similar interests. So it was me, him, my mom and dad. We were in Flossmoor for probably to like junior high school, and then they got divorced. Then we were in Homewood. I went to college in Bloomington, Indiana for 2 years.
Let me pause you right there. What was your father's business?
It was like a print mail business. So I think it was called like a print house or a mail house. So other companies would have mailing lists, and then they would send the marketing collateral to him with the labels, and then he had the machines that would fill the labels. Yeah, mail would pick it up, get sent out.
And then you and your brother are very active in sports and stuff. Are you still tight with him?
We're close, but we don't see each other as much like back then. I mean, we're both grown. He has 2 young kids. He's a full-time coach for both their sports. Mm-hmm. They live a little bit. They're in New Lenox. I'm in Valparaiso. So we do see each other when we can, and the love is there. We're just not as like active of like, we don't see each other every week. But
yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I have 3 sons. And this is just life according to me. The strongest bond between human beings is not a parent and a child. It's actually brothers. Because when brothers are in alignment, they're unbeatable. They're infallible. You know what I mean? So I hope my sons stay together long after I take the checkered flag. And it's awesome that you're close with your brother. That isn't always the case. So all right, so you grew up, you're moving through the south side, basically southwest suburbs, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And then just take us through to a nice detailed journey to when the bad decision making started.
Yeah, no problem. So like I said, I went to Bloomington, Indiana for 2 years. Then I transferred to Columbia College in the city.
What were you studying?
Graphic design. Oh, no, I'm sorry. At Columbia, I was in marketing communications. And then I kind of got misled with that degree because I was studying like marketing campaigns. And then when I got out of school, all the marketing positions were essentially like cold sales. So I was like, that's not really what I got trained or wanted to do. So I went back to a school called IADT. They're no longer in business. But it was like a kind of like a trade school. So I got a graphic design degree from there. And from that, I was doing like freelance work, and kind of like offset of that was I was working with a lot of like independent musicians because I was involved in like the Chicago music scene for a little bit, and worked with a lot of people. So that was like my bridge of passion of like the design and art piece with the music piece.
Any boy-girl relationships up until that point? Any serious?
Oh, no, none serious.
No? Okay, good for you.
Not till I got in my mid-30s. To go back, like when you say bad decisions, like there was a time, like I hit my rock bottom when I was 30. But to go back before that, I started smoking pot when I was 11 years old, 5th grade.
This fascinates me. I've had a couple guests come on and say that. I mean, I'm older than you. Like I'm 21 years older than you.
Okay.
I grew up in the 70s. I was a only child. I had a bag of rolled joints on my kitchen table my whole childhood, and I've never smoked pot or done a drug. That's grace of God.
True.
But so I didn't know, like, where are you getting pot at 11 years old?
Yeah, I mean, valid question. Me and my best friend both had older brothers. His brothers were even older than mine. Like I said, mine was only about, he would have been in 7th grade, which by the time we were in 7th grade, everyone was smoking pot.
Unbelievable.
At least crazy to me. But then he had my buddy had brothers in high school, so it was a little bit easier to get. We started smoking pot and then started drinking alcohol around like 13, I think.
How are you getting that? Same way, like the older guys? Or
that and like your parents' cabinet. yeah. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I did a little of that too.
Yeah. Things like that. The alcohol was obviously more of like an occasional weekend thing, but the pot was every day. Like from the first time I smoked it, I loved it. And looking back, knowing what I know now, I was like, I was in full blown addict mode of couldn't put it down, couldn't go a day without it, and just would smoke, and I loved it. And
so, like in the course of a school day, are you smoking before school and after, or are you finding a spot in between in the schoolyard?
At that age, it was more like after. In junior high, it was before. High school, it was before, during, and after, and before supper, after supper. It was pretty much like a lifestyle at that point.
Can I ask you what you think that the pot did to you? Did it make you better, worse, slower? What were the effects overall?
It more just felt good. I don't know if it made me better or worse.
Okay, fair enough.
I just enjoyed how I felt when I used it, but I would say one of the negative things, like they could talk all, can I curse on here?
Of course.
Okay, they talk all the shit they want about the word gateway drug, but like I do think pot opened me up to other things, just like, especially as an addict, you're always chasing like a bigger high or recapturing your first high. So you eventually will start, not everyone, I don't want to paraphrase or put everyone in a group, but for me, I started looking for like stronger effects or bringing me back to something that could do it. So, I mean, we were still taking like mushrooms and ecstasy and stuff in high school. So that was kind of another gateway. And then by the time college came around, there was more like coke and more ecstasy pills. That was college. But in high school, I was taking mushrooms and ecstasy, smoking.
What did the mushrooms and the ecstasy do? How would you describe those highs?
If you take enough, you start seeing things, and like it's kind of out of body. So
with both of them, or is that the mushrooms?
Both. Yeah. Well, ecstasy, you don't really see things, but it is like kind of an out of body high. Looking back on it now, like, well, I wouldn't even feel comfortable feeling that way anymore. But
why is that?
I like to be grounded in my body and in control of myself.
Amen. So that's why I never did drugs. I had them all over my house as a child, but I saw what it was doing to the adults, and it scared me. Yeah. I never want to lose my faculties where I can't protect myself or make good decisions.
Oh, yeah.
I was afraid of them. You know what I mean?
That was like, woo, man, made some bad decisions on those all the time. Yeah, bad decisions. So anyways, those things kind of carried me through life where they were always going on, but more of like a fun, like something you do for fun. When you're young, you're not thinking like you're in a phase of addiction or anything like that. It's just you and your buddies having a good time. I remember in college, like doing coke before one of my classes. And I was like, this is just for now. I'll never do it. When I'm grown, when I'm old, when I'm like 30 years old or something. And I'm 30 years old doing more coke than I ever done before. So it's interesting because I realized later, and not just for addiction, you have to get intentional around the behavior you want to change, because if you just think it's going to drift away, it's not.
So I want to just backpedal a little bit. You mentioned the term gateway drug, right? And there's arguments on both sides of that line, but you just provided like the argument that it is a gateway drug, right? Because you're looking for a higher high. I've known a lot of people in my life who have smoked pot. If I had to put a percentage on those people who didn't go to a harder drug, It's almost zero. They all went on to something else. Doesn't mean they got addicted to it, but
Correct.
they tried more stuff.
Yeah, it
right?
led to something. Yeah, not everyone has the experience that I did, but oftentimes, if anything, it probably will spark like curiosity of what else is out there, what else they can take. So yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting.
I made it through college, and then I made it through another college. It was kind of like still
The Columbia?
yeah, early 20s. You're still just kind of having a good time with it, and then I would say like one of the big factors that impacted me was actually my brother's wedding. Surprisingly or not, because at the wedding, I was thankful enough and blessed enough to be his best man, but I had not written a best man speech on the wedding day. Like we're getting dressed, and I still had no speech. And a couple people had like prescriptions to Adderall. And I remember I took Adderall in college, like more like before, not as like a fun activity drug, but more like you never studied in your test tomorrow and you got to stay up all night and you can focus and things like that. So I had a little experience with it, but I ended up like taking one. They had it, they were kind of like passing them out, and I took one, and then I ended up writing this speech, and it was still from the heart, but it was like when I gave the speech later in the night, it got like a standing ovation, and like everybody was so moved, and like people were crying. It was like a big deal at the wedding, and I didn't know it at the time, but now that I've like done some work around it, it's like I had linked taking Adderall to be like producing in a successful manner. So when I got in graphic design, I would always take pills because it would help me focus to be at the computer or get more creative. But like I just created this loop in my brain, like a dependency on like I linked it to successful results.
Just to pause here, have you ever seen the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper?
Mm-hmm.
So he took those blue pills and it optimized his brain, you know. So you were kind of linking that up.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what led to the start of, like, I would say, like my downfall. It's hard to say downfall because I was never like, I never had a job before I got clean. I never, I like freelance, but it was like I'd make like a couple $100 a month or something, or like, you know, $1,000. Like a lot of times I was living off like $3,000 maybe for the year, like making like a couple $100, $5,000 a year.
So
like,
how were you living then? Like what were your living arrangements?
oh yeah. Girlfriends that would maybe like cover the rent or something like that, or staying in my aunt's house where I didn't have to pay rent. Definitely not a quality of life situation. And, you know, putting no energy into getting out of those circumstances either.
You're really just living day to day, right?
Yeah, for sure. So that started like my baseline level of like taking those pills on a daily basis. So I started taking those so much. It got to the point like at the end of the road, I was taking like anywhere between like 120 to 150 milligrams a day of Adderall.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah,
but
so like 30 milligrams is the strongest that can get provided, like per pill, and that's about 4 to 5 a day. And I would stay up anywhere between like 2 to 5 days at a time, and that would be like my consistent loop. So I would just like be up and on zombie mode and completely like out of state, just really weird state. You know, you're not like brushing your teeth, you're not showering, but then you're like going out in public. It's pretty gross thinking about it.
what happens after the 3 to 5 days? Is it a massive crash?
Yeah, you sleep for about a day. Yeah. And then you get up and do it again. Like when I would actually sleep, my pills would be like at my bedside to where I would open it and have one in my mouth and swallow it before my eyes open for the day.
Wow.
So on the rare time I did go to sleep, that's then how I would start over. And yeah, so during that period, I got into more like the ecstasy and the coke on like a pretty continual basis, but like the pills was like an everyday thing. But like in recovery, they say like the addiction is so manipulative, and for me, it didn't occur that even though it's a narcotic and methamphetamine, like the pills never occurred to me as like a drug because it's a pill. It's not like something you chop up and sniff or like inject. So that's kind of where my brain still was tricking me of like, oh, you're doing like coke and ecstasy on the weekend. So you don't really have a problem. Even though like if you even took out the drugs, like if you just looked at my life circumstances of what my life looked like, I had this old school two-door Chevy Cavalier. It was like fire hydrant red with probably like 5 dents in it. It had no gas cap. And I had no money whatsoever to like repair it when anything happened. So I remember one time like the door, the driver's side door would not close all the way. It kind of like hit and then like revert back out. So I didn't know what was wrong with it. But since I had no money and I was very resourceful, I got some like small like rope and tied the doorknob of a handle like from my driver door to the handle of the passenger door. And that's like kind of like what kept it closed hard enough to drive the car. And this is in the dead of winter in, Illinois. So it was pretty chilly, but I would be driving. I'd have to drive so slow for it not to hope everyone's passing me. And, when I hit like a right turn, the whole door would just like open up, and it was terrible. My window would break. It would just be open for the dead of winter.
So I got to say something. I have a notepad here, and I, when you'll say something, it will spark something that I want to ask you. So I'll write it down.
Yeah, that's okay.
Cool. So I wrote down on this pad here, right up here, the word resourceful, and you just said I was resourceful, and you. By doing the car door thing, and I was going to say, living this life without having too much money, you were resourceful. You found a way to get what you wanted, right?
Sure.
A place to live, the next fix on your drugs, right? And
it wasn't a high quality of life, but I was getting what I needed at the time. Until I wasn't.
So, but resourcefulness is a gift, and now we'll get to the point in life. When we get to present time, you're using that same resourcefulness for good.
Sure.
But I just wanted to sidebar you there.
I appreciate that.
So, all right. So you're
still using.
This is around age 30 or getting to age 30.
This is like on the second half of like past 25, leading into 30. Kind of like for those last 5 years is when it really started going from like a good time to like, there's a problem here. You're not functioning like a normal adult in society would. Your dependency on it is like completely taken over your life.
May I ask you, did you have any people in your life that were like concerned for you and giving you like real talk?
Oh yeah. So my mom was like the main one. She even called me like, you got a drug problem. And I basically told her, fuck you. I know I don't.
That's typical addict stuff,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, nah, you couldn't tell me I had a drug problem. Especially when you grow up in the suburbs and you went to college and like, I didn't much have success, but I was also like pursuing this stuff with music. So it's like I still had ambition. I was still like, I could work my ass off because I was up for 5 days in a row. So I would literally work for like 70 hours straight. And like, so it wasn't like I was lazy. It was just like misguided energy, I would say.
In addition to your mother, did you have any good friends, or were you surrounded by friends that were doing the same shit?
Everyone was doing the same stuff. Even like my dad lives out of state, so it was not like I was around him enough for him to see the change. My stepmom did kind of like tell him at one point, like, hey, this dude lost a lot of weight. Like I was so thin. Like when I got clean, I think I weighed like 135.
Wow.
I looked like a skeleton. I had like fucking purple shit coming out of my face from all the amphetamines like coming out of my pores. And like, dude, I wouldn't even care. I'd be like at a nightclub with like purple marks all over my face. Didn't care. Still talking to girls, like just oblivious to like the reality I was in. Even my driver's license, I remember I had my license expired and I had to get my license renewed, and I was like up for 2 days. And I mean, I look like a weekend at Bernie's, like on my photo, like this. And you see like the big scabs on it. I'm like, that was a rough representation. Like you get pulled over with that one, there's gonna be some questions. So that was, I held on to that one for a long time as a reminder of where I came from, and then I just cut it up one day. Like I don't need that reminder. But yeah, it was rough. We were just doing what we did. But then, so like I said, I was doing design work, and then a buddy of mine who I grew up with was like best friends with. We kind of like separated after college, but he had called me wanting a logo design for a real estate company that he was looking to start. His father had owned some property. And so that's how we connected, reconnected. And we were talking little bit about, like what he wanted to do. And then it kind of led to like, maybe we could do some real estate together. Like we were looking, cause I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make as a designer. Like I was creating really great art, but, like the thing about independent artists is that most of them are broke. So they put all their money into creating the actual project they're making, but they don't budget for like marketing or promotion. So it's like you're doing crap for like $300 and they don't understand why you got to put like half up front. Like they just want you to work. And I just did the math one day. Like, oh my God, I'd have to make like 250 brochures a month to make like the type of money I wanted to make. So I started looking at other options of like career path. And that's kind of where me and my buddy started conversing, because he was working a job that he was kind of looking at other things. And that's when we made a list of like possible things we could do. And then we would like narrow it down, and like real estate just always kept being kind of like that one thing of like, it's way more proven over time than everything else. It's more interesting for me. I want to have a passion for what I'm putting my energy towards. So that's where we started looking into like actually getting into real estate. Um, so the funny thing is I didn't know a damn thing about real estate. I never had a property. I had no money. My credit at the time was like 480, because when I was using and everything, I would just like get cash advances from the banks on credit cards and then never pay them. So, I mean, when I got clean, I had to go to Fifth Third Bank because it was the only bank in town I had fucked over. That's a true story. Was that Valmer and I think Governor's Highway? That was the only bank that would take me. 480 credit score. And so when you're talking real estate, I got no experience of owning a house, no experience of even like having my own rent for a house. I have no credit. I made about $5,000 a year, and I'm on drugs every day. But I'm gonna start a real estate business. And I probably needed to be on drugs to be crazy enough to think I could, looking back on it. Yeah. But this was like the start of a profound spiritual journey for me. This point right here. I grew up with faith, and we'll get into that later, but there's a difference of knowing about God and knowing God. And this is also like my mom, she was very much into like metaphysical spirituality. So like I got connected and aware of that when I was around like 13. So it wasn't just like a God thing. It was like energy, consciousness, awareness. So my upbringing was kind of funny, because I would be like reading John Maxwell or Deepak Chopra and like pause and like do a line of coke and like get back to reading these like thought leaders books. So I was always playing in like two fields of like personal growth and development and spirituality, but like excessive drug use and everything that lifestyle kind of led me to.
And I just want to pause you right here. Yeah. Haven't known you personally too much, but I've known, we work out of the same office. Yeah. And I follow you on Facebook, and you have always immersed yourself in the quest for knowledge. That's one thing I noticed about you, because you came to our Warrior Realtor seminar. You were sitting in the front seat taking notes. You're on film, like really paying attention. So that's one of your superpowers, is you dig in to find knowledge and truth, as it turns out. So that's awesome. Yeah. So you're taking drugs, but you're reading thought leaders, right? That's exactly pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting, but that skill ended up helping me later down the line, which we'll get into as we kind of get to that point. So I know nothing about real estate, and I have no resources to help me get there. And the one thing I had though was this book by Abraham Hicks, Law of Attraction. And that's like, so I had done some like metaphysical stuff as a young child, but then like, you know, you're in high school, it kind of disappears or like it puts to the back burner, like you go to college and stuff and it kind of fades. But like the good thing is when I got that book, I didn't need to like be persuaded about energy or like that it works or that it's real and that it's everything. Like I already came into that book with all that understanding. So I was able to just like dig into the content of the book and like apply it. So, yeah, me and my buddy, we first started, we went to the Homewood Public Library because I mean, when I had no knowledge about real estate, we studied at the library for about 4 months. My perception of time is so off because of like, first now this was about 12 years ago, or 13 years ago, but also because of like the drug use, it's like hard to say, but I think it was about 13 years ago and we were there for about 4 months. Like he quit his job and I quit graphic design. That was the other thing. So we both stopped our money making activity, despite how little mine was. But he actually had like a salary job and we both quit to become real estate investors. And so our job was just to educate ourselves and I mean like understand terms of real estate so I could even like have a conversation with somebody, understand like, oh, there's different types of investing. Like there's wholesale. I wouldn't even call wholesaling investing, but different ways to make money. You can have rental property. You could have flips. You could sell, but I wasn't interested in that at the time. But it's like, okay, then there's these strategies and then there's different terms for it. There's different strategies within the strategy itself and just educating ourselves on that process. But I remember just telling people in my life, like, dude, I'm a real estate investor. I don't have a house, but I'm a real estate investor. You'll see. And I believed it. I remember like before I ever owned a property, I'll write in a journal, I am a millionaire real estate investor. I'm a millionaire. And it would be a whole page. I didn't have shit. Now I am. Mm-hmm. That's the power of like putting some from your mind into the energy of the world. Like I'm not the most consistent journaler, but I really think the power of journaling isn't like journaling is itself. It's if you break it down, it's taking like your thought energy from here and actually putting it into the real world, from a spiritual realm into a physical realm by putting it on paper. Now it exists in
forever
real form. Yeah. So I was doing that, but I still had nothing. I was reading Law of Attraction by Abraham Hicks, and they give you like practical tools on how to manifest your thoughts into things, essentially. And I just started doing it. I just started doing what they said with no opinion on it, which I think in learning, like you can want to like add or take away is like, no, I just started doing what they said. And similar, like in an overlapping time, you know, Ron Wexler, he's actually a family friend of ours. Oh, and he was the first meeting I ever took in real estate. Somehow, like he took, because he was a friend of my family's. So my mom and dad's house was an expired listing. Like shit, at this point, it was probably like 30 years ago, but like at the time it was, you know, like maybe 18 years ago. He ended up like selling 4 houses for them. You know, Ron, he becomes a friend of like what you're doing.
He was the keys to king of real estate out in that area. So
yep, Homewood Flossmoor area. I kind of like leveraged my relationship with my mom, had my mom reach out to him, like, would you meet with him? Guy gave us an hour, God bless him, you know, and for the first like 30 minutes of the conversation, like, you know, I am not showing up like dressed very well or professional or kept. Like I'm somebody that hadn't slept in a few days and is like looking probably about as rough as you could imagine. And I go in his office and I'm like, yeah, I want to be a real estate investor. And like, I have nothing and no team. And can you help me? Poor guy was like, damn, why'd I take this meeting? You know, probably cursing my mom under his breath. The first 30 minutes, he was like, this is a terrible idea. Do not do this. Like pretty much trying to like convince us, like, go back and work your job if you can. Like, this is not a great idea. And the second half of the meeting went a little different because he saw that we were serious and like, it wasn't something that like we were pipe dreaming, but like, no, we're taking the action. We're in the library. We're like networking, like plotting out how we want to do it. So he started giving us like some suggestions and said like, you know, if there's anything he can do for us, he will do that. And it was kind of like, okay, great. I'm just trying to get my feet wet with like meet with people and network at this point. Now, fast forward, this might have been like, I don't know, it could have been like 2 weeks later, it could have been a month. It wasn't too long after that. We're at the library. It's hot as hell. It's in the summer. Like chain smoking. I used to smoke cigarettes and then I just remember I would go on these like hour-long smoke breaks from my study and just like chain smoke cigarettes because I was so Adderalled out. It's like an upper. So you smoking. And my phone rang and it said Ron Lex. I'm like, the fuck's he calling me for? Like, and he calls me, he's like, look, I got this condo from Habitat from Humanity that I'm gonna list in 2 days, but if you want it, you can. It's yours. It's 16 grand, and if you flip it, it'd be about like 35,000 or something. And I'm like, I'm super pumped at this point. But then when I hang up, I'm like, how the fuck am I gonna raise $16,000? Because now like it's so funny saying like, oh, 16,000, but like at that time I made so little money and my relationship to money was so fucking poor that like, dude might as well have asked me to raise $1 million in 48 hours. That was like what it felt like to me based on like my life situation. Like, dude, I have like $18 to my name. You want me to come up with 16 grand in 2 days, you know? But, you know, I took action despite what I felt and despite what was there for me. I took action. I started calling people like, this is what we're doing. Like, I got a deal. Like, when people say, like, you get a deal, the money's out there, that shit ain't no joke because this is one of those things. When I tell you I had no money, but I had a deal.
Let me ask you a question. Did you go look at the property before you started to raise funds?
Yeah,
and then you did your flip calculation and all that.
It was a little condo in Glenwood, so it was local. We were able to go see it. I think like he had one of his agents on his team like open it up or something for us. It was a cosmetic situation, pretty straightforward, about 1,000 square feet. I still have photos on my phone from that house.
Nice.
Yeah, you always remember your first deal, man. And one day, then my mom, like within that 48 hours, called me and she's like, I think I found somebody for you. So my mom was like, first she got the meeting and now she's got like the guy. And I remember like she connected me. It was her life partner who he passed away, but it was like his best friend. And I remember like he was open to like at least talking to us. And we were talking, I'll never forget it. I'm in the red car, the fire hydrant car with all the dents and the no gas cap in the parking lot of Homewood Library. And he's asking me, so what do y'all got going on? Like, this dude is, you know, he's a high level executive. Like, no, he's a straight shooter just like you. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm not a straight shooter. I'm as wiggly as someone could be, you know? And so I'm like trying to like kind of finesse the situation. I'm like, here's what we got going on. It's like, all right, all this sounds good, but like, hold on. Before, what is your experience doing this? You know, like, he's like, okay, it sounds good, but like, who the hell are you, basically? You know, and who the hell's your buddy that I have absolutely no connection. Like, at least I know you through your mom or have met you a few times. Who's your buddy? So we're telling him about the situation, kind of like what we've been doing. It was such a low cost deal. We ended up like agreeing to, he would fund the deal and we would just split the profit. And I mean, it was a very low, like it wasn't some cash cow, but it was like our experience starter, like willing to do sweat equity for a few grand and all that. So we went to his office and like talked with him. We signed the papers and like, so God willing, like we actually got the money and did this deal together, which is still an act of God because that's the only thing that would make sense. But so we close. And then it was so cool. Like I'd have friends come to the property and they're like confused because they were like, you told me you were going to start investing in real estate, but you had no money. I know your situation. You're fucked up living at your aunt's house. Like, how did this happen? basically. Like, how did you go from saying you're gonna, and then a few months later, I'm in your shit? And it was like, that's when I really tuned in high with like the energy and the consciousness and the awareness, because leading up to that point, I would just sit and meditate. I would see myself in a property. I would see myself doing work. When you manifest, you want to go from all five senses. So not just visualize, what is the smell of the house? What's it feel like when you're sitting on the floor? Are you on carpet? Are you on concrete because you already ripped the carpet up? Like, what do you feel? What's it taste like? What's the air taste like in an old stanky condo or wherever property you envision, And it's like, I would just like take myself there. And then when I seen like how it worked like that, I was like, man, there's something to this.
So let me ask you, up until this point, the whole timeline we talked about, if I were to ask you, did you have belief in yourself the whole time, or did that vary in intensity? In other words, because right now you're at a point where you're believing in something. You're either believing in the systems that you're reading about, or you're believing in yourself, or a combination, right?
Yeah, it's a great question, because later one of my like defining moments is actually someone else believing in me when I didn't have belief.
Oh.
At this point, I'm not sure if I had belief or just unwavering arrogance.
That's a great answer.
I'm not
actually.
sure, because I really didn't have like anything to like believe in myself. I hadn't accomplished too much, but like I did believe in the law of attraction. I knew that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I believed that.
You had a belief in systems and concepts, right?
I did believe I could execute this flip. I did believe that, but did I like have high level self-esteem? No. I had a mask that said I did, but that was just something hiding the real truth, that I was ashamed that I was in my late 20s. I had no job. I had no money. I had no family. All my friends were always like, I said, my brother was 2 years older. So like once we got into college, I went to college with all them actually. All my friends like in my age went to different schools. So I connected with them, and then they graduated before me. So it's like all the people I saw always like they already started having like their own place. They were in their careers. They were engaged. So like everyone, even though like obviously I'm in school, they're not like, they should be a little bit of a gap, but like I just always felt like inferior based on like how I was compared to where my close friends were.
Fair enough. And then another question, that time period, I mean, you were doing drugs and stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
Was that a constriction to your potential? Is that what kept you back all of that time? Because you did go to college and you did, get some kind of knowledge, but was that like a barrier the drugs were pushing up against you achieving? How would you describe that?
I think it's a catch-22, because even though like I can't sit here and say drugs didn't hinder me. They did hinder decision makings, and they hindered like my ability to function as a normal human being. Yes. But while I was functioning, I'm not promoting drug use, but like in my experience, like with what I was doing, it brought my already there awareness and consciousness tapped into greater things. So like while I was degrading my body, I was having a greater spiritual experience at this. It was so weird because it's like contradictory of itself, but like there was some just absolutely crazy creations that were done in a conscious form that were aided by drugs. Similar to how people could take something nowadays, like to enhance their awareness. I just did it excessively to where it became like terrible for me and brought me to my knees and had nothing. And, we can get to that part.
Yeah, great.
Down the line.
Great answer. So
it was kind of aiding. It was great for like, you need to get shit done. Okay, well, I'll be up for 3 days. I get a lot of shit done in 3 days if I'm not sleeping or like, doing anything. So it was good for that. But then it was also terrible because like, I will just say that it is a damn miracle that this guy got his money back, because he's given us like 10 grand cash to go renovate a house. And then the next draw is another 10. Like the last thing you want to do is give a drug addict 10 grand cash and ask him to be responsible for what you're using that money for. So like it is a true act of God that we were. I think the first one we might have lost some money. There was something weird. First, I was never explained what closing costs were. So when I said, all right, we're going to sell it for 35 and we bought it for 16 and put 10 in, well, that's 9,000 profit. You know, it doesn't really work like that. So I think after the closing costs, we like broke even or some shit like that. There was an issue. Somehow we got double taxed. It was like really heartbreaking because it was like that was our first one. We put so much into it. Knew we weren't going to make a lot, but it was still like expecting something. And to literally just go through that experience as an experience with no tangible money at the end of it was very discouraging. I mean, that shit almost broke me, but we kept going.
I did property flipping too, not much of it. And that first one, man, you learn a lot.
Oh yeah. We weren't your average like real estate investors because we was bringing like women and strippers over like to the house all the time and stuff. Cause my buddy didn't have a situation. So like we kind of used it as like a personal residence too, like in the middle of the stuff. Like I remember like the contractors would be like coming for like to start their day's worth of work we're still left from the last night. Like, oh shit, how'd the blow, you know? The contractors are here and they try to open the door with a straight face. All right, come on in. Like, good to see you. Like, we just got there. So I know we've been here since 5 a.m, you know?
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a miracle. Like we would, I remember on the second flip, which the second flip was amazing, by the way, because we were walking, me and my buddy, we were walking through his neighborhood one day. Like this was like the other house was like under contract or we had just closed on it. The first flip we did. We were like smoking or whatever, walking. We seen this like house for sale and we pulled it up. It was like 100 grand. Or it might have been, no, it was 80 grand. Yeah, because we bought it for 60. And I remember I was like, I'll never buy this shit for 80, but if it dropped to 60, I'll buy it right away. And then like 2 days later, my buddy texted me the link. He's like, dude, look. And it had dropped to 60. We scheduled an appointment and we bought it that day. But so anyways, we're doing the second flip. And there's lots of like the stuff like how he got his money was just such a blessing because we have like money and then we just like be at the strip club with some of that money. And I was like, oh, like that 4,000 was supposed to go to paint, but it went to like drugs and other activities. And so next thing you know, I'm on YouTube, like how to paint a house. You know, I'm like rolling the house. My shoulders still hurt from like hitting that ceiling for like 2 days straight. My shit sore 12 years later from that. Yeah, it was just like a crazy situation. Like one of the main contractors we had hired, he lived next door. He was like a crackhead, but like, you know, you say, how could you not know he's a crackhead? Like, if you on drugs, it's a lot harder to recognize someone else is on drugs.
That's right.
If you're not on drugs, it's very easy to identify when someone else is on drugs. So like, to me, it was just somebody willing to work for $100 a day, you know? It was like, it works for me. So he was doing the house. We got into it with him, but we flipped it and sold it. And that's how that was the start of how I got into real estate sales, because the guy that was representing us on Ron's team, he like got into it with the other agent and like was in no communication. I guess he like cussed them out. And like one day we were at the property, just kind of like sweeping up, like maintaining the integrity of like there was walkthroughs and stuff. We were under contract and like the buyer agent and the buyer had walked in like to show their family or something. And we had connected and I was like, dude, what's going on like with the deal? And then she told me like about how the agent had cussed her out and all this. Like, dude, just call. Here's my number. Like, we gonna get this closed, and whatever we need to do to get it closed, like, we gonna make sure it happens. We closed it, and that was kind of like the light bulb of like, dude, why don't we just get our realtor license and start representing ourselves on our own deal? So we enrolled in like the classes at Keller Williams. We were taking the classes, but this is kind of like where I bottomed out with my drug addiction. So I like gone through the whole class and passed, but I never got to like, you know, there's that, and then you have to like go take the actual exam with the state. I never made it to that part. So I kind of had bottomed out and was at that point then like kicked out of the house because I wasn't willing to like change my behavior and actions.
Whose house?
My aunt's, but my mom lived there as well. So I mean, it was like a bunch of grown adults, and then I'm a grown adult just like showing up whenever I want in the middle of the night, loud and clumsy, like clanking shit, and just wasn't good for them or just I'm surprised they didn't do it a lot sooner. But I was kind of just drifting through like motels, and some nights I would just sleep in the car if I didn't really have like a couch or money for a motel, things like that. So it was rough. Like that was probably, I don't know, maybe a good like year or so of that stuff.
Wow.
Where it's just drifting, kind of whatever. Yeah, it was tough. Like you wake up and you got like maybe $25 to your name, and it's like, I got no gas in my car. I got to eat, maybe. A lot of days I would skip meals. Because they cost money. Sometimes I didn't have the money. Other times, if you take enough amphetamines, like your appetite disappears. So it was so funny. Like one time I did like I think it was called like a David fast or something, like one of them fasts you do for a few days. But like I was on drugs the whole time. It was like so easy not to eat, but I thought I was like really accomplishing shit. Like, oh, I fasted. Like, no, you just took a bunch of dope and didn't have an appetite.
Yeah.
Like completely different experience, But so you'd have to just figure out like, how am I going to get through this day? Where am I going to sleep with like very small amounts of money as a grown adult in your pocket, like to your name. So like you're constantly just living off of like, I got 300 to my name, I got 100 to my name, I got 50 to my name. Next day I might have 150, like just juggling like the smallest amount. So there's no goals, there's no aspirations, because the thing was, what we had told why there was no other flip is we were supposed to get our license to do the next one, and then like I had bottomed out, so then like the properties stopped happening. Then I was just drifting, essentially.
So it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were a walking contradiction, because you did have awareness about energy and the path to success. And you both basically quit your job and hyper focus on learning everything you had to do. That's extreme, because people don't want to take the risk on themselves.
Yeah.
But yet, with all that knowledge and awareness and wisdom, I'm even going to call it, you were still a fuck up.
Yep.
You were a walking contradiction, weren't you?
Yep. Yeah. At some point, it went from like the classic tale of like you're a functioning addict to you're just an addict. Like the functioning part of it kind of went out the way. Like I wasn't even like pursuing getting that license or anything, or like trying to get to another house. I just was okay, like day by day, figuring out what I'm gonna do to get through the day. And that was that. Yeah, but one day my mom called or whatever, and like, she was not knowing what I was doing per se. Like I was like very involved in like the escorting business and like just kind of like finessing my way through some things. Like that's how I'd be like at hotels if I didn't have money to pay for my own. I would just stay at the girl that I was like kind of managing or whatever, and like befriend them. And it was weird. We were like flipping houses, but also like running escorts at the same. So
do you want to expand on the escort thing, or no? You don't have to.
We talked about the addicts always look for the next high, So me and my buddy, we would be at the strip club, and we loved like it's such an addict mentality. So it's almost like weird to say in a sober mindset, but like if you're in a sports, it's like the Bears going into Lambeau Field, right? Like all the crowd is against them, all the rules. So like that's how we felt going into the strip club. All the rules are set up against us being able to achieve the outcome of taking you home with me, because you're supposed to be the prize. You're the dancer. There's no regulation, all these things. But the rebellion in me was like, oh, this is a challenge. So that was like how we would spend our time. I wouldn't even get dances. I was just like meeting people and like befriending people and like manipulating people, all types of stuff. But eventually that got boring. And then it was like, okay, so we would just leave. The club would close at like 5 a.m. You're so doped out, you don't want to go home or end your night. You still got a bunch of drugs on you. What do? Start looking at escorts. they're up or they will be up, but started finding like not just to book them, but like then how to take my level of what we were already doing at the club to another level. So like we started like just going with the goal of like sleeping with them for free. And then we were doing that through like I said, I was still trained and stuff. So I had like all these skill sets to bring in to get into like, yeah, we don't even have to like have it be that arrangement. We can just kind of have fun as two consensual adults, or in this case, a lot of times it was three because my buddy was there too. And they always liked both of us. So it was like, they'd always have a hard time choosing. Like, well, you don't have to choose. You can just like be with both of us, you know? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of that going on, but
you use the word manage.
Yeah, like basically like pimp, but it's a nice word for manage. Mm-hmm. You know, you just set them up with like a better situation. And in our case, we provided like a level of like security and like they had a lot of holes in their operation. So we're like, we don't really want to be like up on your business, but you're cool, we're cool, we like each other. And like for a small fee, like we'll get you set up in a better situation with proper, like basically in the business world, it'd be called like systems and operation procedure.
So you're recruiting some of the clientele and you're protecting them. That is pimping. So
yeah. We were doing that. So I was at the hotels a lot. But one day my mom called me and I was there and she was like, so she didn't know any of this was going on. She just knew I was on straight bullshit all the time and was on drugs and like was not allowed to come home in that frame of mind. So like I said, I was homeless looking back, I was homeless by choice. You know, I had a home that was offered to me. I was just not willing to do what it took for them to allow me to be there. Mm-hmm. So I was drifting for a while. But at the time it didn't feel like homeless by choice. It felt like homelessness, you know? Yeah, it didn't feel like I was choosing that. No, they kicked, how dare you, like real victim mentality.
Yep.
Looking back, I'm like, damn, nope, I chose that. But you get the lessons you need to get out of the lessons that are there. You know, you always go through things. Which later, please ask me about Progressive Path. That's my company, and that has a meaning that I can tie into this. But she was like, look, man, I don't know what you're doing or what you're up to, but you can come home under one condition. And I'm like, fuck. She's like, you got to start going to meetings, meaning like recovery meetings. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why would I go to a meeting if I don't have a problem? That
Still at this point.
Yeah, I got shit to my name. I'm drifting. And like, dude, at this point, I had sold my car for $250, snorted that shit in the same night. Like, dude, there was just so much evidence that like I was a drug addict. And why would I go to meetings? I don't have a problem. I think this might have been like God intervening because like, that's what I thought. That's not what I said. I said, okay. I didn't even think of that. It just came out of my mouth.
Wow.
Looking back, I would say like my spirit was just fucking tired. Like you live in such a low level of living for an extended period of time, like whether it's 30 days, a week, a year, 2 years, like when you wake up just trying to manage your basics of living, of like getting around town, like paying for food, like just, man, what do I want to do? Like buy cigarettes? Like you're just making these like weird choices of like, I'm going to not do this basic type of life for this because I'm choosing this basic type of life. You know, it's weird. Be like searching my car for coins to get some off the dollar menu. And like, I'll be counting pennies. That's how bad it was. And then I'd be like, $2. Nice. I can go get some. And I'd actually turn the car on and realize there was no gas. I didn't even have money to get the gas. So like, fuck. You know, it was like that a lot. So I was just tired and exhausted. And then my mindset was basically 3 hots and a cot. I was like, if I'm at home, I got a place to sleep every night and I know my mom is going to feed me. That was enough to be like, yes, I just need a roof over my head and some damn food a couple times a day. Cause I was not getting either of those on a reliable, consistent basis. So I go home or like she lived at my aunt's house. My aunt was retired. She was in Arizona most of the time. So it was like my mom's house, but my aunt owned it basically, but she was like the parental figure. I go there, I'm 30, and I agree to like go to the meeting. First, like when I'm there, like I didn't come home to some like great setup. I had a fucking when I say 3 hots and a cot, no, I was on a fucking cot. So that's not a figure of speech. I was sleeping on a cot. That shit hurt my back. I can still feel pains, but it was something, you know. Later in life, I graduated to an air mattress, and then after a little bit more time, I graduated to a twin bed. And as a grown man, I was sleeping on that twin bed, grateful as shit. But so we agreed that I would go to meetings, and we didn't say like you have to do X amount per week. There was no like that. It was just like you have to actively be involved in meetings. So I went to the first meeting. Ugh, man, it was like right down the street, St. James Hospital, Olympia Fields. Walking, this fucking meeting was in like the back of the hospital. So you have to take the longest walk to get to this fucking room. And it was like, you know, the hospital lights, it's white. There's like not a soul anywhere. I'm just kind of like drifting. Like, fuck, like the longer the walk, the more like your brain is just on overdrive, like talking you of like, why don't you just pretend you went and go home in an hour and a half or something? You know, like all these things of like not to go in the room. And I remember I made the turn. It was like, you make a right, and then it's the first room on the left. I made the final right, go into the room, open the door. Not a damn person in there. I was like, what the fuck? So the meeting schedule had the wrong day on the app. So the meeting was tomorrow. So I worked myself all the way up to get to the meeting that didn't exist. And but that's a God thing, because like in addiction and recovery, it's a miracle for an active addict to make it to their first meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. The fact that there was no usage between that 24 hours and the next 24 hours, and I made it the next day to that meeting is like such a blessing, because as I learned, a lot of shit can go wrong in 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of shit can go south in 24. But it was so cool. Like, that was the hospital I was born at 30 years ago.
Wow.
And it was like I was reborn in the same hospital.
How about that?
Fuck, man. That shit still gives me chills.
Yeah, that's part of the divine fabric, man.
Yeah,
That don't happen
can't
by
make
accident.
that shit up. And what I realized, dude, that hospital was about a 90-minute drive from where I was staying. I could have walked there in 10 minutes. Help and opportunity is in greater proximity than our brain will make us think it is. Whether that's in business, friendship, just seeking some advice, like our brain is trained to naturally think like all this shit is so far out and like it's out there somewhere. Like successful people's like so far out. Like, no, there's someone in your neighborhood you can meet. I promise you. So it's like, that's what I really got in there. I was like, holy shit, something life-changing was 90 seconds away from me this whole time. And I'm coming back to where I started my life.
That's so cool what you said, and I just want to say that goes into a lot of our happiness is tied to what's ever out there, not to what's right here, right now, right? And you know, living in the present moment, that's the key.
Yeah.
If you're present, you make your present perfect, right? It's not about what's out there.
So I went to the meeting. I remember vividly, I was in the last back corner. Like, it's funny. So yeah, now I sit in the front row, like at your train.
Yeah.
Back then, I was in the farthest row to the back, just like listening. I was pretty interested because some of these guys were saying shit that resonated with me. That was like kind of like emotionally and mentally things that like normal citizens wouldn't be able to like have gone through or like understand about you, you know? So that kind of like caught me off guard, that I was like connecting with some of the stuff. Because I was really just there to stay in the house. Like I wasn't like, again, I still had no problem. I was just like doing my part of the agreement to stay in the house. But I was hearing some things that kind of surprised me. And then like in recovery, similar to like AA has like coins or like chips. NA has well, you'll get a coin for like a year anniversary, but like their intermediary acknowledgements are like key tags. So they have like some like called for 0 to 30 days. Like you're basically like you fresh off the street, key tag. And then like, you know, do you want a key tag or whatever? Because you have to like say like if it's your first time there, your first meeting, they ask you like, is anyone here for the first time in their life? You know, type shit like that. So they asked me like, do you want a key tag? And I still remember like first, I'm like, hell no, I don't want no damn key tag because I'd be admitting that that's some shit wrong.
Right.
No, second, like, dude, I had 2 coins in my pocket. That was the financial accumulation I had in my 30 years of life in my pocket. 2 coins. I don't recall which ones they were, but I remember like when you don't have confidence, you're walking with your hands in your pocket. So that's why I remember that I had 2 coins in my left pocket. I felt 2 coins and I was like, holy shit, this is all I have. So I wasn't about to tell them I couldn't afford a fucking key tag. You know, I'm not about to be that honest with y'all. And the third thing is I had no fucking car, which I was also not about to tell them. So hell no, I don't want your key tag. But what came out of my mouth was, how much is it? And I was like, dude, it's free. Like just fucking take it and give me a hug. So I was like, begrudgingly, I took it. I got a bunch of hugs and they said something like, the most important meeting you can make is the one you make tomorrow. And I was like, just talking out of my ass, bullshitting everybody like I always did in my life. Oh, I'll be there. I'll be at the meeting tomorrow. No intention of going to the meeting. Tomorrow comes up. For some reason, I have a desire to go to this meeting all of a sudden. And I go to the meeting. After the meeting, somebody I seen from the night before was there and was like, holy shit, you made it. And I was like, why are he so surprised that I made it? Now look like having some recovery time, it's like, yeah, a lot of people go and say they're going to go. And like new people will say they're going to go and don't ever make it back in them rooms. So I see why he was so surprised. I was taken aback. Like, well, I told you I would go. You know, like I've been living this like integrity-based life my whole life. Well, I told you so. Why would you doubt me for my word? I think that was like the first time I was honest in probably a decade, and it was by fucking accident. You know, it wasn't like I intentionally kept my word to him or anything. Right. Like I just happened to show up and you were there. And so I went to the meeting and then kind of kept going to meetings, and I was still not ready to say I was an addict. I still wasn't ready because I was undecided. Yes, things, every meeting I went to, things they were saying was making more sense to me. But it was just like so much like resistance because of what being an addict meant, at least in terms of like how I was. I don't want to say raised because your parents aren't like sitting down with you, like teaching you manners about like what's an addict, what's not an addict. But it's just like over time, you get a picture in your head of who's an addict. It wasn't me. Yet all the information was resonating with me, but I still hadn't admitted. Then one of these, there's like a basic textbook similar to like the AA has like a big book. This is like their version of that where it's just like the fundamentals about like recovery and like some stories and like the program. Doesn't go too much into like addiction itself. It's more like recovery based. But they gave me the book again because I had no fucking money. Someone donated $9 for the book and gave it to me. And my boy Spencer, he was like, the first person I connected with, rest in peace, Spencer, died clean. Man, that was like my best friend in recovery. But I always call him Unc, and he called me nephew because he was probably like 30 years older than me. Great fucking guy with a great sense of humor. But he signed my book. He said, keep coming back. It just gets better.
Wow, that's an awesome statement.
He was fucking telling the truth, and that's what they say in the meeting. They keep coming back, it gets better. So I got this book. Now, this is probably like 3 weeks into going to meetings, give or take. I'm in that, whatever, I'm in cot or bed. I don't even know what I was in at that time, but like I told you how I'd be up for so many days at a time, but when I stopped using, my sleep patterns were so fucked up because of my brain wiring. I could not sleep. It took me a good like year to get back on a normal sleeping pattern, meaning like go to sleep at 10 and wake up at 7. Dude, when I got into real estate and heard people were waking up at 5 a.m., I was like, why the fuck y'all waking up in the middle of the night? Because I never had a job. Like 5 a.m., no, that's when we're like getting more drugs or like kicking it. Like, why are you getting up to go to work is the weirdest concept. Of course, now I'm up at 5 o'clock. I could not go to sleep for so long. So there's a lot of tossing and turning or just like binge watching shows online because like your brain won't allow you to sleep. Like I said, I was always a reader. Now I had this book and I said, fuck it, I'm gonna just read it. And so the middle of the night, I'm on like, I think it's like the second or third chapter. It's called Who is an Addict? This is one of the defining moments of my life. I'm a highlighter. Some people underline, some highlight, some don't do shit. Some have like post-it notes or whatever. I'm a highlighter. I read this chapter, like, damn, that was good. And then I look back, I'm like, holy shit, the entire chapter is highlighted outside of like a couple lines. But I'm like, I was sitting in my room with the book on my lap, my flashlight from my phone in one hand, probably this hand, then like highlighting with that one. Like 3:30 in the morning, room's pitch black. And to myself, I just said, I'm an addict. It's like, in that moment, I felt like 1,000 pins get pulled out of my body and like the air just shoot out. It was the biggest release and spiritual experience that I had. Like I felt the Holy Spirit in the room with me. It was so still. And it was like, no one could make me get to that point of admittance except myself. My mom couldn't tell me or no one could shove it down my throat. Nobody at the meeting could tell me, despite the evidence being there, that was some point of acceptance I had to get to on my own. And I did in that moment. And that changed the trajectory of my life.
That was the bottom, right?
No, the bottom was when I was in them hotels by myself.
Okay, so
there'd be times I'd be sitting in that room by myself just looking at the ceiling because I didn't have nowhere to go, nothing to do.
Maybe I'll rephrase it. That was like a bounce point.
Yes.
You bounced off.
Yeah, so it wasn't rock bottom, but that was the point where the reverb happened.
Nice.
Of the trajectory. Like, yeah, technically going to the meetings, but that was like where proactiveness kicked in. Because, in that book, they write it so well. They say, like, being an addict or addiction is not like a moral deficiency. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's not if you're under a bridge with a pick in your arm. It's just actually a thinking disease. That's what addiction is a mental thinking disease. So when you go to that point, it takes out all the morality shit you associate with what is an addict. All I have is a thinking disease that I was unaware of, and there's actual things I can do to combat this. So, in the book, they say it doesn't go away. I have my own beliefs about that because I know when a drop of Jesus blood hits your heart, your whole shit's transformed. That's my take on it. So I'm not saying like your thinking might not be there, but like I don't identify as an addict anymore because I went through what I went through. I might still have like excessive behaviors, but I don't identify as an addict. And I still will go to narcotics, and I believe God changed my heart and my mind. That's my belief. But anyway, in that book, they say, here's 4 things that an addict does that has never relapsed from when doing these 4 things. And I was like, at that time, I think NA was like 62 years old. Worldwide, addictions worldwide. They got NA all over. So that kind of caught my attention because I'm like, wait, not one person ever in the history? There might be something to this shit, right? So it gave me practical steps. It was shit like go to meetings, get a sponsor, be of service, show up. Like, these are all things you can do that are not like complicated at their cause. But if you do these, nobody's ever relapsed while doing those 4 things at the same time. So I took to that, and then I left out like all the meaning of negativity around that. It was just like, I have a disease and I'm going to like, it, for me, it got broke down like someone saying you got cancer and you being in denial, you got cancer. But none to be in denial about getting the solution of like, are you doing chemo, radiation, holistic? Like, you just getting the solution once you get that. Like, if you have like diabetes, I don't want to like speak inaccurately, but my guess would be like, if you go to the doctor, they do your blood work and you're like, they're diabetic. People aren't like, I'm not diabetic. Like, there's no like uproar and like, it's kind of like, okay, what do we have to do to like treat this diabetes? So that was like my approach with addiction of like, there's actually nothing wrong. I just have this disease, and what can I do about this shit to like prevent the symptoms? Because they said the drug use is just like what we do when we take drugs is just like symptoms of like, it triggers the addiction in us.
I want to make 2 points here. Number one, I think I may have told you on the phone, my mother died of a heroin overdose.
Yeah, you did.
And,
Sorry,
I was 18 years old. I'd already moved out and lived with my grandma and my aunt because I couldn't stand my mother's lifestyle. And plus, she left me alone when I was a little boy. She was a shitty parent, great person. And then, my career took off and I was angry with her for a long time, like till my 30s, because I'm a believer in choice, right? I take accountability for everything that happens to me. Even if a piano falls on my head, I'm saying, where were my eyes? Did I not have situational awareness? I had control over that event. So all the choices we've ever made have led us to be right here, right now.
Yep.
We have steered
100%.
our ship here, right? Yep. So I was pissed at her for making bad choices, all right? And then I finally figured out that when you have an addiction, that by definition means you no longer have a choice. Something else is controlling you, right? And when I was able to figure that out, I was able to forgive her. And when you forgive somebody, it isn't for that person; it's for you, right? You're releasing your demon. So what you said resonated about kind of a disease of your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So that's super interesting. The other thing I want to ask you is, you kind of credit the Holy Spirit and the blood of Jesus in this equation, these things that happen to you, these landmark moments during these time frames. Are you asking for help? Are you praying for help? Or your heart's in it, but your words are not there?
Yeah, I wasn't like all the way there. So my relationship with God and then also Jesus was something that God got developed before Christ, but then Christ came like later in my journey as my spirituality opened up a little bit. Always believed in him, but like we said, there's a difference of like, I believe he's true and this story is accurate to knowing him in a personal relationship. But I wasn't like praying for like guidance or help. I wasn't like there yet. The only time I pray, we call them foxhole prayers,
Right.
You're fucked up. Please help me. Like,
right.
That's about all I prayed for.
But it's hard to pray for help when you're in denial that you even
exactly.
need help,
Well, there's nothing to pray for at that point because I don't have any need for assistance. You have to have a higher power in addiction because what I realized, this is what always used to mess me up. I was always influential, like around people. So like, how could I be this influential, but then something like this big, like a pill could take me to my knees and just control me. That was something I really like struggle with understanding. But as I got deeper into recovery, it was like, okay, so addiction is pretty much an energy at its core, a disease. Everything is energy. And that shit is greater than me. That's what I can admit, that shit is stronger than me. And I'm 100% clear on that. But now, if I'm going to go up against something that's stronger than me, that means my ally also has to be greater than me. And that's God or whoever that person's higher power. That's like, they don't say that, but they do say like, you have to have something that you identify as like bigger than you and wants none but care and love for you. And like, you can label that whatever you want. But like, for me, it was like, yeah, it's not just about like giving your life to God. It's like, no, because you can't do this shit on your own because you're fighting a spiritual battle on your own willpower. It's not going to work out. I'm not saying you can't get clean, because the difference, like, clean time and recovery ain't the same. Recovery is where the spiritual healing happens. Clean time is just an abstinence of usage. Now, things could still get better, and you can mistake that for recovery, but there's no, like I said, my heart and my mind ain't the same as it used to be. So yeah, I had to bring God into it. And then what really took my relationship with God to the next level was, remember, I was at the park, not too far from the library I studied, Isaac Walton in Homewood. There's a park there. There's a bench right off Ridge Road. Midday, still ain't have shit to do at this point. I was unemployable. Still just working my steps. Step 3, you turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand him. And I was journaling. They have like a whole questionnaire that kind of like guides you through like questions that you journal on. And it was like, man, that was the moment. Like, first was the acceptance, but that was the moment where it's like, I seen what happened when Andrew's at the wheel. The wheel disappears because you sell it. There is no wheel.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah. And when I gave it to him, I'm not saying that I haven't had my own challenges and struggles and like conflicts and far from perfect, but like my life been in an upward trajectory since that moment. And that was about 10 years ago. And then that just opened up like a journey of like understanding and knowing God at a greater level, and then like different types of spirituality. And then like that, and led to me like connecting with Jesus at a greater level. And then I read the Bible last year for the first time in its entirety. I'd read like books and like tried to before, never worked out. Read it last year, reading it again this year with a couple friends, which has been good. But it was kind of like the spiritual journey has just evolved over time.
And a spiritual journey, like anything else, it's a daily workshop.
Oh yeah.
You don't get to a point of awareness and awakening. It's exercise every day.
Yeah.
And you said something interesting before we started the cameras. I believe you said that there's a difference between knowing of God and knowing God.
Yeah.
Is that how you phrased it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, pretty much. One is like the general concept of like there's a creator, there's a source energy, and the other is like you treat him like you would, well, a friend. Some of the way these people treat their friends, I don't know, but basically you want to be in communication with him. You want to share things with him. It's not always about asking for prayer, like what can you do for me? It's just he just wants to be close to you, and he wants to be there for you, and he wants to love on you, and he loves us more than our own parents or any human being ever could. So it's like he longs for just intimate moments of you sharing stuff with him about your life or what you're going through, or, hey, I'm struggling with this. Like, what do you think I should do? Or can you give me a sign on what way to go? Yeah, just having that intimate and like faith within that like things are going to work out, do the work, and something bigger is guiding your life than just you. You still got to do the footsteps and the work, but like there is something that is guiding you along the way.
And I don't want to get into a long religious thing, but a lot of people who pray a lot and say, they're Christians and, God's trying to tell me something. God did this, God this, that. You make your own decisions. You are steering your ship. You either do it, with God in you. It truly, in other words, they think something better will come along because God will give it to me. And I'm thinking to myself, no, we're still, like you said, we have to take the steps. We pray for guidance. Things just don't drop on our lap. You know what I mean? I had an epiphany because I went from, being raised with faith to skeptical because I have an engineering mind, and I started studying astronomy and all this stuff. Turns out that a lot of that stuff is a lie too. Another conversation. But, when Dorothy got sick, I was in my skeptical mode, and I said, Jesus, if you're there, please show yourself. And then by God, all of these things lined up, and I'll do a podcast one day about that, but 7 consecutive things happen on 7 consecutive days that could not be coincidence.
And if you look into 7, there's a big spiritual connection with like completion, and
Okay, so I
that's
didn't
a
know
big
that.
number in the Bible, yeah.
So these people were praying with me and moving me, and then I met a stranger at the grocery store after Dorothy had died. He was getting lottery tickets at the grocery store, and I was waiting at the machine to get lottery tickets. And this is like the 5th sign on this day, okay? He gets the tickets, he looks at me, walks right up to me, holds out his hand. He goes, "I know you." And I shake his hand. I never seen the guy in my life. I go, "I'm Frank Lardino." He goes, "I know." He goes, "I'm so-and-so. I'm friends with you on Facebook. I'm the one who chimed in and said, I lost my wife to cancer too." I said, "Oh, I remember that. He's a friend you have on Facebook that's a friend of a friend you never met him, but you accept their friend request, right?" So he's like, "Sorry about Dorothy." And without solicitation, he went into his testimony on how basically similar type of life as you. And he had his flashpoint, and it became all about his faith. And while he's talking to me, giving me this unsolicited testimony, I'm looking up at the ceiling going, "Is this another sign?" And he got to the point in the conversation where he said, "I found a good Bible study group at in Elmhurst at Timothy Christian High School." And as soon as he said that, I pointed at him and go, "You're starting to scare me." And I was serious. He goes, "Why?" I go, "Finish your story." So he finished his story. I told him why I was skeptical. He told me, "Look, religion is one thing, but the Bible is the word. You need to read the word, and the meaning and the truth will come to you." And he goes, "Now, why did I scare you?" I said, "You know where my wife and her siblings went to high school? Timothy Christian in Elmhurst." That was it. I'm like, I was like, "Yep, that's another one." So once you let him in, then you see him everywhere. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
You see the signs everywhere. You see the divine works every day almost.
And then when you go to the metaphysical, the more energy you put into seeing his blessings, you're just attracting that even more.
Hell yeah, because we talked about the energy.
Yep.
All right, so we took a sidebar there. So now you're where you are in the story.
Yep. So probably like 3 months maybe into recovery, and I keep doing that for a little bit, and then kind of like around 9 months in, you have a good baseline established of like you have a little bit of time away from that lifestyle and away from drugs. I was still not active in society. So what does that mean? I went to meetings and took my ass home. And that was my life for 9 months. I was in that room. I started working out. I read a lot, watched a lot of TV. I did not trust myself in society because I was still in the area where I did everything. And all my connections were. But around like 9 months, let's say lost dreams awakened. It just got to me because I was like, what I was looking at, I was like, all right, so what am I going to do with my life? Because it's like 9 months. All right, you have a little bit of a foundation at this point. You kind of have to start thinking about like what's next. When you're just getting in it and like getting a little momentum, you're not even thinking about like working. I don't know how some people are employed when they go in. For me, it wouldn't have worked. Like I needed my isolation and just complete reset. Like, so yeah, for me, it was like, had to start looking at like, what's the next chapter? Because like I said, for me, when it's like 3 months, I'm just focused on like getting clean and like staying clean and like building a new way of life and new thinking. So 9 months rolled around. I started shifting into like the what's next conversation. And one day I was like meditating, and then, oh man, this fire just erupted inside of me, and real estate just kept like showing its face to me in my vision of like when I'm asleep. It was just like real estate, real estate, real estate. And it was like the way it was showing up, it was like you were on the right path before with this and it was viable solution to get what you want, you just fucked it up. And there's something there. And it felt like unfinished business to attend to. So I was like, also at this point, my resume kind of wasn't the greatest because I had no job to put on my resume after college. So it's not like you just start applying on Indeed, 6-figure jobs after not working for 10 years. It's not how it goes. So I was really like, real estate is kind of what I see for myself. I know my plan was good. And I even found like an old business plan. Like, damn, like
One of your old business plans?
Yeah, that I wrote when I was like super fucked up. I was like, there was a lot of genius in this actually. In my crazy times, like this shit was on point. It's just the execution was off because couldn't manage myself for my resources. So I committed to like doing real estate. Somehow I still had the classroom book from when I had taken my class licensee. And I was doing some research. I found there's like a 3 or 4 year window from when you take the classroom thing to when you can get your license. And I was like, shit, I still got like a small window. I think this was maybe like 2-3 years like later in life, between like not being proactive at all to like going to meetings. And then like 9 months after that, it was about 2.5 years in between. So oh man, full circle. I ended up going to the same library that I started studying real estate in. And that was my what's the word I'm looking for?
Introduction.
Yeah, reintroduction into society. And I mean, I chunked down that goal so much. Whereas like, if I can only make it for 15 minutes, I'm going to the library for 15 minutes because at this point, I said it took me a year to get on normal sleeping. So there was days I might have been up till 5, but I was like, I will be up at 9 a.m. no matter what happens. And I'll be at that fucking library after I shower, brush my teeth, and change. And I will be there. And however long I can get to, I'll get to. But I don't care how tired I am. I am shifting the course of what's going on here. And that's about what it was. The first day was about 15 minutes before I started nodding off. And I was in a little room by myself. And I am a visual learner. So getting like a 400-page law book essentially to read and take quizzes on was like, dude, that shit was a challenge for me. But each day I would go back to that library. First few days, it was really like 15 minutes, 30 minutes. I would wake up in the room like I fell asleep because I was so tired. But then it would shift to like 45 minutes. And then over time, I could go study for an hour. And I'm like taking the practice exams in the book. And then I was like going for 2 hours. And like, this is how I started trusting myself in society, was going back to that same library where it all started, studying real estate again in a different way. And I probably studied maybe for like a month and a half or 2 before I felt like I had to go through the whole book and then reread all the chapters. And I felt like confident till I take the test.
Which is not an easy test. They say 3/4 of the people
Dude,
fail.
I had street smarts. I was never like in school. I never do homework. I just kind of finesse my way through. So like studying and taking the actual test, like wasn't necessarily my God-given talent. So I was super inspired and like empowered. I'd done all the work. I got clean. I studied. I'm passionate. I go take this test. Bro, I failed the fuck out of that test. I mean, failed miserably, like both state and national failed. And I was like, damn, because that was kind of like my first roadblock of getting clean. I thought like, I'm clean now, everything's going to work out. But, I was just like, this is what I committed to. And so I went back to the library the next day and I started studying till I felt more comfortable. I went back and I can't remember if I failed both again or failed one, but I failed either way. And then I did some more research. I got like a software to help me with like questions. Then I think I passed the first like one section of it the second time, and then the third time I failed that one section because once you pass one, they only make you take the part of what you didn't pass. So I failed the third time. Now they only give you 4 attempts before you have to like go back to the classroom and like start over. That's as much rope as they give you. And I was in the library, I was studying, and I booked my time for like the 4th test. I remember like before I went in there, I'm sitting in this car with my aunt's Prius, and I still had no car. She let me like use her car because she had an extra. Sitting in this car, I'm just like, look, God, this is what I want for myself. And I felt like you put this desire in me back then and right now. But like, if this isn't what you want me to do with my life, then don't have me pass this test. Like, I'm totally surrendering to what you want for me on my life. It's what I thought you wanted, but I don't know. Maybe this is a self-will thing. But if it's not, just work through my brain and guide me and give me the intelligence to pass this test. But I'm like completely like putting it in your hands. And I remember I went in there and I took the test, and you like walk over to the little lady at the desk and they print out the sheet. You like no reaction, like straight poker face. So I have no inclination if I like pass or fail. I looked at it and it said I passed. And like I went back to the car and I just looked at the thing and just like everything came flooding back to me um, of the journey and like not just the recovery, but the commitment and like how this was connected to even years before. And like I did it. This was like the first time I sat and like, I guess with recovery I did, but like for a professional thing, like committed and fucking did it. I was just crying.
At that moment when you learned you passed, you had a hyperspace flashback of the whole journey, didn't you?
Where I took the test was H&R Block off Governor's Highway, right south of Route 30. Right outside of that is the motel that I used to stay at and like run people out of. So I'm like looking at the paper and then I look up and like there's the motel, and 2 blocks behind the motel was the last house I flipped. So it was like where I'm at, then where I stayed, then the house I had flipped. And it was like, so everything was in a few blocks of a visual sight, but I could see the hotel. I was like, it just took me all the way there.
Wow.
And I was like, fuck, man, God is good.
Yeah.
And then, the plot thickens. I found out I needed $1,200 to actually hang my license. So I thought I could just start working.
Right.
No, I needed $1,200 I didn't have. So that took me on a whole other journey that was interesting. But yeah, I ended up getting my license at Keller Williams. It's where I met Alexandra, my fiance and life partner. We had desks next to each other in the bullpen. We were friends, just supporting each other, both going through our own personal things at the time, and 2 people that were new and hustling to make some shit happen for their life. And it just turned into like a really strong bond and appreciation that we actually became business partners first before we ever got involved, like as like romantically. But yeah, so it's been a great like blessing of that whole Keller Williams calling of where like Alka's basically like it's where I met Ron and did the licensing. And when I was at the licensing, they had a bookshelf. That was the first time I saw like they had spirituality. It wasn't all just business. So I saw like, oh, like because how I grew up, it was like, I was taking like shamanic classes when I was in like high school and shit, psychic classes. But like all the people I saw in those classes was kind of like moms or like hippie-ish or like it wasn't ever bridged between that and business. before. It was like two separate worlds from what I'd experienced. Obviously, that's not true, but just from what I had experienced, I had totally separated the two worlds. When I got to Keller Williams and saw those books on there, it was like a bookshelf in my house, like in my room. That little ass room, I had a bookshelf. But
that's a tribute to Keller Williams and Ron Wexler's office.
Yeah.
That's a culture thing.
Because Ron Wexler is the one who gave my mom Law of Attraction, who gave to me.
How about that?
Yeah, Ron's ass like been connected to my journey since I was 5 years old, calling my mom as an expired listing.
That's the one thing I love about Keller Williams is the culture.
Yeah.
So I don't, they have a lot of rah-rah stuff, and Yvette, Yvette's my partner. We don't get into that because we're self-winding clocks. But the thing is, we're all part of one unit and we root for each other. I haven't seen a toxic competitive spirit within agent to agent in our office.
I haven't, no.
So
I can't speak for like every office, but they have a culture and seems to be like definitely not ours. And it seems like that's one of the big things about Keller Williams is their culture.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then, you sitting next to Alexandra in the bullpen, that is not an accident either.
No.
That's all part of the energy and divine fabric.
Yep. And when I tell you, like, a woman was the last thing I was looking. Well, no, let me rephrase. A relationship was the last thing I was looking for. I was definitely looking for some women.
Yeah.
Now I got a job and I got a little bit of money coming in. Like, I'm ready to enjoy women with a little success because I was always just so fucked up and like doing whatever.
Yeah.
It was a different caliber of people. But yeah, that was definitely a God thing right there. That she was born in Serbia, halfway across the world, and she's like as straight laced as they like been drunk like once in her life. Definitely never no drugs. I grew up how I did, and it's like the fact that we met at a desk in Orland Park after all we both been through is an act of God on its own. You should talk to her. Her story is very compelling. She was on the first flight after 9/11 to come to America and had 2 suitcases, didn't speak the language, and didn't have any money.
Wow.
And that's how she got to America. And that's why she is who she is, because she'll make shit happen for herself.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so her stories, we both have our own stories, and the fact that we were able to like somehow be next to each other, like how you tell every decision brought us to this table. It was like the same thing, but then like to have a support, have a friendship. It was great because we were authentically friends with no like will they, won't they type energy. But the beauty of that was like you get to really know somebody for who they are when there's no pressure of are you dating. And now there's like so many apps. It's like if you meet someone, there's like a million people in your inbox or like such a microwave culture. It's like, but you're always, if you're on a date, you're experiencing it under the pretense like, can I see them as my partner or a future potential husband? Or do I want more? Do I want to go on a second date? Like, so you're analyzing like everything. When you're just there as friends and like mutual appreciation, there's no analyzation. You're just accepting them for who they are. And I was like, man, that in hindsight was such a blessing that we got to like connect for a year straight and become close. And it was funny then, like energetically, like, we both did a bunch of landmark stuff together. But we would show up to like events and people would think we were together just because of like how close our energy and like that synergy we had. And we were like looking at each other like, no, like definitely not dating them. And we kind of joke like we were the last ones to know that we liked each other. Everyone else already knew and like thought we were husband and wife. Like, no, that's just my friend. But whatever we were like, the intimacy that we had created with one another had like transferred out into the world to where we showed up and people was like, now y'all look like so connected that you got to be together.
That's cool. You're actually not putting the cart before the house. The romance comes after you built the super solid foundation of respect. That's cool. Yeah. I watch you guys on Facebook. I love what you post. You do some business stuff with the house flips and her son. I saw him doing some demo.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. But what's also very cool, which is also a lesson to teach me, is that you guys do balance work-life balance. You do take your vacations and you enjoy life. And I love that too, because I'm a lot older than you. And there was a point in time in that, 30s, 40s where I didn't do that. It was go, go, go. I enjoyed life, but I missed a little bit of my kids growing up. I was here all the time, but I wasn't here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like that you guys do that. Yeah. I'm enjoying watching you guys.
Oh, thanks.
So, yeah.
I'm enjoying doing it. It's been a ride.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right. So now you've had a successful run of you're doing all your real estate. And do you want to talk about your newest, you're branching off, you're not branching off, you're creating another branch on your life tree, which is what?
So me and Alexandra have a coaching business called You Now. It's transformational coaching. What that comes from, when we say You Now, we mean we're going to guide you to be the authentic and empowered you right now. That means results are not over the course of 7 months, 8 months, a year's worth of therapy. We have techniques that can get you instantaneous results like that. Even simple things like if you are allergic to something, allergies can be removed in not a second, but 8 to 10 minutes. Phobias removed in 8 to 10 minutes. Real phobias gone out of your neurology. Coaching people to be who they really are, because we all are no matter how much work you do, like you said, there's always more to be done, but it's like our baggage resides in our unconscious mind, and we're living life with baggage that we're unaware of, and that hinders our filters, which hinders everything we do and perceive and experience life. And our goal is to help people like remove them and be the authentic, empowered person to go through life powerfully and fulfill on what they want to do in the areas that are most important to them. And it's a very unique process on that way of how we get them there.
You and I talked about this before we started the podcast. We've both been on a journey to understand the mind, and the mind's very powerful, but there's simplicity to it too, in terms of we have actually control over wiring and rewiring.
Yes.
We may not have had control when we were little. We talked about, age 0 through 7, our brains are absorbing all the stimuli around us, right? Mm-hmm. We're not necessarily picking and choosing that stimuli, and some of that permanent wiring goes in, and that is part of baggage, yes?
Yes, absolutely. It's essentially a negative experience that you carry with you, and it just kind of like, in your perspective, you might think that's just who you are, but it's really not. It's just something that happened that you carried and connected to a negative experience with, and now is negatively impacting your filter and views and thinking of life. The great thing is like those can actually be removed or like released out of your neurology.
So you and I are gonna maybe we'll do another podcast. I already wrote it down here. Future podcast. I put mind stuff because I've always been on this mission myself to leave a good legacy. What does that mean? Well, everybody says, I always try to do the right thing. Everybody says that. But to know what the right thing is, what the higher purpose is, that takes a strong mind. You have to actually be living and learning, be a critical thinker to know what the right thing to do is. Mm-hmm. So I try to be a critical thinker to know what components do I want to leave my legacy? What are the components of my legacy? And basically it is, I want to put more into the system that I take out. I want to put more light into this dark world. And to do that, I have to be the best and strongest version of myself.
Yeah.
Because how many people were you helping when you were in your own personal hole? None, correct? So
maybe less than that.
The more we optimize this, the more good impact we can have in the world. So I'm always on that mission of becoming, emotionally stronger, intellectually stronger, so I can have more impact in the world. I know how I do it, but you actually are teaching this. I'm going to call it brain optimization, because that's really what you're doing. So let's expand on this moving forward. We're going to have definitely a better relationship
Okay.
moving
I look
forward.
forward to
And,
that. That'll
and
be
then we
great.
can do a whole podcast on that
Sweet.
and talk about the techniques and
Yeah,
stuff.
I'll bring
And-
Alexandra. In. She's very
Yeah.
well versed and even more experienced than me in this, but it's both something that both of us really have stuck to this type of work and have made some good difference with people and are looking forward to making a lot more difference. Like I was sharing before, like we're really committed. And I believe in my hearts with this business, we'll be able to make probably within 2 to 3 years more difference than I've made my first 40 years of living just off this
I love
methodology and these coachings because we're going to help people get lasting change and what's really important to them.
And I love that. And I told you before we started today that whatever way I can collaborate with you, I'm in. And just so you know, I have a chapter 4 in my book that I wrote is called The Unlimited Power of the Brain. Okay, so we're definitely on the same page. I only have a few photos in this book. And one of the photos that I have in this book is of the burning monk. Are you familiar with the burning monk?
Mm.
Okay, well, this is a picture of the
Holy
burning
shit.
monk. So during the Vietnam era, a Buddhist monk in protest of the mistreatment of monks by the Vietnamese government, he went into the town square with hundreds of people watching. He doused himself in gasoline and he lit himself on fire, and he stayed in his meditative position and he didn't move a muscle.
That's intense.
Until he toppled over and he was a piece of char.
Yeah.
So burning is the worst pain sensation to any living creature. Nothing gives us more pain than burning. And he just showed that with the power of his brain and meditation, he could overcome that.
Yeah, it's no joke.
So it's a real thing. Like our brains are super powerful. As you said, you can use it to heal, what you're teaching people how to do with the allergies and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
So-
Because 90% of what we go through is through your unconscious mind. So if we're basically making decisions and thinking using the 10%, what is the impact of not addressing that other 90%? Where it's basically the unconscious is like the modem of our computer.
So tell me,
The conscious is like what's on the screen.
so tell me about, like, this is demonstrated in hypnotism, right?
Yeah.
So tell me
can
what some
definitely
of the
do that.
remarkable hypnotism things, because you're trained in this as well.
Yeah. So with the hypnotherapy is great is used in a way that like goes against, we've kind of been like trained through whatever, like the carnival thing of like, go to sleep. But that's not really what it is. How we've been trained and certified and used is to just get people to a trance-like state and communicate with their unconscious mind. And one of the biggest things we do with this is prior to going in that state, we'll have like the client write out affirmations or results or action items that they want to be doing that they're currently not. So once they're in, so we're not like manipulating, these are what they create. Once they're in trance, we can go in and in a hypnotic rhythm tone, start sharing these things that they created over and over and essentially planning it into their unconscious.
Awesome. Well, my friend, very enlightening. It takes bravery to tell your story.
No, thank you.
And your story is going to help a lot of people, because a lot of people are where you were and probably thinking they may be in denial, or there may be no hope for them in their own mind. So we could all pull out of the tailspin. You know what I mean?
You asked me earlier if I believed in myself. And I said, it might have been belief. It might have been complete arrogance. I don't know. But there was a time when I didn't believe in myself later down the line. And I was still in my aunt's. I remember my mom sat me down and she was like, Andrew, I love you and I believe in you. And she just kept telling me that. And I didn't believe in myself at that moment. I believe her belief transferred onto me at some point. And, that's what's powerful because there was no physical evidence of reason to believe that I was going to go do anything with my life, or more just like a mother believing her kid or like loves you and knows. She didn't know what like life was going to take. She just knew there was something better available for me than what I was experiencing at that time. But what I got out of that is, who in our life do we need to put a belief on that no longer believes in themselves and may have had everyone else in their life give up on them already, and who we can be for that person, just like my mom was for me. So I'm always looking at who you can do that. And I ask people to go see, because that moment, well, I didn't do anything, was a pivotal moment for me, of her, and just the power of belief as a whole and what you can do when you believe in yourself or put a belief in others. Everything becomes possible with belief. That belief will give you the actions you need to take. It'll give you the confidence. It'll make it turns possibility into reality if you have the belief.
Your mother's words is almost like it's an adrenaline shot. You're not believing in yourself, but you believe her belief in you, right? That's real. She gave you she wasn't bullshitting you either. You know what I mean? She gave
wasn't.
it flat out that this is the truth. And that's awesome. It's a blessing to have parents that, she had the wherewithal to do that with you.
Yeah.
And I have a dear friend. She's been on the podcast a couple of times. Her name is Sarah Goggin Young, and she told her story very similar to your story, the death spiral with drugs. And she pulled out of it, and now she's a life coach, and her famous saying is the power to believe. So it's the same thing.
Yeah. The word believe means to be love. That's what it breaks down to. So my mentor taught me that, Kevin Hall, be love. So anytime you believe in yourself or believe in someone else,
I love
you
that.
are being loved. You're either loving yourself or you're loving them.
That's awesome. It's awesome. All right, my friend. Well, this was a great, enlightening podcast. Thank you.
I had a great time. Thanks for having me, man. This was
we're gonna do it. We'll do another one. We'll get into the mind stuff too, because we'll be sparring back and forth in a good way. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So
that'd be great.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining the Warrior Podcast today. My guest, Andrew Weis, who will now become a dear friend. We love you all.
That right.
Remember, there's a warrior inside us all. And thank you again, Andrew, for coming.
Thanks for having me, Frank.